The trial of the prosecutor versus Dominic Ongwen continued from the 31st January till the 5th March 2019 at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. During this time, 6 witnesses were called by Ongwen defense team to give their testimony before the chamber about the Lost Resistance Army, Joseph Kony, and Dominic Ongwen. Dominic Ongwen, the alleged former commander of the senior brigade of the LRA, is accused of 70 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity allegedly committed during a widespread and systematic attack directed against the civilian population of northern Uganda from at least 1st July 2002 to 31st December 2005, including the attacks against the civilian population in Lukodi, Pajule, Odek, and Abok IDP camps between October 2003 and June 2004. Witnesses D26P0032 and D26P0027, two former LRA abducted soldiers, testified about their experiences while in the LRA. They both said that after they were abducted in the LRA, they were initiated, underwent several rituals and religious teachings. They were later on military trained and taught about the rules and regulations of the LRA. They were also taught about the various punishments rendered if rules were broken. Witness D26P0032 was questioned about it in details.
And Mr. Witness, on Tuesday, you also stated that the punishment for rape was death. Now, these policies and punishments, who instituted these policies and punishments?
In the LRA, there is no one else other than Joseph Kony who would issue out orders. All the orders for the killings came from Kony.
You talked about the marriages, about wives and husbands. Who sanctioned marriages in the LRA?
That was Kony himself. If you are allowed to go through courtship, he will have given an instruction that these people are free to court themselves. For instance, if I went and then courted a lady, then I would go and inform my immediate commander, and my commander would then go and report to Kony. And if Kony accepted that the girl I have courted, I'm allowed to stay with her, then we can begin living as husband and wife. But if he objected to that, then we'll not have to continue. If I defied that, both of us would be punished.
And what would that punishment be, or what were the possible punishments for that?
For such a crime, they would not kill you, but you would be whipped several canes of the stroke, and you would be separated.
Mr. Witness, and sorry, this is a follow-up from the past 4 sessions. You've always talked about orders or rules. Now, what would happen to someone who failed or refused to implement an order from Joseph Kony?
Any person who does not execute Kony's orders would be killed. Kony would say that you are competing with him or disobeying his orders, and you would be killed.
Witness D26P0032 testified about his interaction with Dominic Ongwen while in the LRA.
Mr. Witness, I'm going to ask you a series of questions now about Mr. Ongwen. Now, can you explain to the court the first time you met Mr. Ongwen?
The first time I met Dominic Ongwen was when he was abducted. That was in 1990. That was the first time I met him after he was abducted. I knew him from then on.
Now, during this period, when you were with Mr. Ongwen, did you teach Mr. Ongwen anything?
At the time we were staying together, like I said, he was still young. What we were doing was to train him on how to take care of himself as a soldier, about the environment, and that is what we were teaching him.
Now, you have said in both private and in public that Mr. Ongwen was young. Could you tell court and maybe describe to the court why you're saying he was young? What gave you that impression that he was young?
What makes me believe he was young and confirmed he was young is because at that time, when we are on the move, for instance, when we are crossing a big water body which had burst its banks, because we have many water bodies in Acholi, he could not cross on his own and he would be carried so that he can cross the water body. He was not even able to move long distances like where his commander had gone. It made me confirm that he was indeed young and he was not able to carry out tasks which adults could carry out at the time.
Witness D26P0032 also noted that while he didn't see Ongwen regularly during his time in the LRA, he heard about Ongwen's fighting skills over the radio calls between Joseph Kony and the LRA senior commanders throughout the years. He heard that Ongwen was a skilled fighter and he took good care of his soldiers. Witness D26P0027 discussed his friendship with the accused while in the LRA.
Now, when you first met Dominic Ongwen, for how long did you stay with him? Do you remember an estimate of time?
At that time, I think we spent almost 1.5 years at the sick bay.
Now, when you met and stayed with Dominic Ongwen for this length of time, can you tell court briefly what kind of person Dominic Ongwen was as a friend and as a task person in the area where you were engaged?
The way we were staying with Dominic, well, we were staying like children, because, you know, if you met with another person somewhere, you become friends. So we were friends with him for the entire period we were together. You know, in the bush, we would follow rules that were given to us, and whatever we were told to do, that would be what we would be doing.
It may be of interest, Mr. Witness, for you to be more specific about Dominic Ongwen's character towards men and separately, and then towards women who were with you there at the time.
The way Dominic related with people, well, I would say is somebody who likes other people. Based on how we were living together, he was non-discriminatory, he was playful, and that was his lifestyle. I don't think his life changed later on. I believe he still lives the same way because he loves people and he would keep on communing with others. He keeps laughing and joking with others. Even later on, when he was already grown up and he was already higher in rank than myself, but we were still living together just like we started earlier on. There was no change in his lifestyle. I didn't observe any changes. While it was prohibited to listen to radio in the LRA, witness D26P0032 said he started listening to Dwok Pacho, a radio program that interviewed individuals who returned from the bush, and he was able to recognize some voices, and this gave him hope that if returned, he won't be killed as Joseph Kony had told them before. Through this radio program, he also learned about amnesty given by the Uganda government to the people who returned from the bush. He confirmed that many senior commanders in the LRA knew about amnesty, but they couldn't tell their subordinates because they could be punished for it. He also testified about attacks in Lukodi, Pajule, and Odek IDP camps.
Mr. Witness, according to what you heard, the Lukodi attack was a combined attack by Sinya and Gilva brigades, right?
That's correct.
And Olak Otulu was one of the two leaders of the Lukodi attack, right?
That's correct.
He was a major in Gilva brigade at the time, correct?
That's correct.
The other leader of the attack was Dominic Ongwen, correct?
The commander from Senior Brigade under the leadership of Dominic Ongwen.
And prior to the attack, Kony summoned Atulu and Ongwen on the radio call to order the attack on Lukodi, right?
He issued an order to Olak Otulu, and he issued another order informing Dominic Ongwen that one of his commanders who is with Olak Otulu should now go. The commander who has joined Olak Otulu should go and attack Lukodi. He informed him.
Mr. Witness, Kony, in fact, told both Otulu and Ongwen to select able-bodied men to go to the attack, didn't he?
He told them to select soldiers from Gilba, from Olak Otulu, but from Silver Brigade, the commander that had separated from Dominic Ongwen had now gone and joined Olak Otulu, and it was no longer necessary to select another group of soldiers. He went in with the soldiers that he had with him.
Another witness who testified during this time was expert witness Mr. Paula Awich, a former National Resistance Army child soldier who was rehabilitated through formal education and graduated with a degree in law, testified before the chamber. Currently, he is a lawyer, child soldiers expert, child rights activist and advocate, and he sat in the UN Committee for Human Rights during the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Mr. Awich wrote many reports regarding the issue of child rights. He worked with the former LRA abducted children by helping in resettling them in society through the African Network for the Prevention and Protection Against Child Abuse and Neglect. Mr. Awich testified about his background as a child soldier as well as his experience and expertise advocating for children's rights. He also testified about his report that he wrote called Enduring Impact of Being a Child Soldier.
What I can conclude is that being a child soldier impacts on your mind, on the mind of the child soldier. It makes your mind be in a situation of not a normal person, a right-thinking person. Of course, as I said, it reacts differently on others. For me, I thought I have overcome it, but who knows? Maybe tomorrow it would reveal that the impact is on me. So the set of facts proved to me that while we were child soldiering, or while anybody's child soldiering, the impact is so grave that it makes you be in a mental situation that it's difficult to have command over yourself.
Thank you. I want to delve a little bit further on your phrase, command over yourself. In your report at page 7, ending in 1028, you've described what happened to these people we've talked about. And you say, and I'm quoting, it's the first paragraph on the top of page 7-1028. The reality is that a child in the ranks of a rebel group is in total captivity of both the mind and the body. Even on attaining the age of 18, such a person is not in command of his or her will and actions. Do you want to explain this a little bit more or make any comment on this conclusion?
Yeah, what I mean here is that as a child soldier, and both in the situation that I experienced and in my interface with other child soldiers, is that the process that you go through, whether you call it, whether it is in our case, the political education, or in the other cases of other rebellion, which use other methods to capture the mind, like spirituality, a child soldier is just what I would call a biological person. His thinking is from what I would call the corporate person, which is the organization commanding him. So he has no command over himself, such that even what you do or what I do as a child soldier at some times, I am doing it as a biological person, but the actual thinking person for my actions is actually another entity, what I would actually call like a corporate person. So that's what I meant by saying, because of this situation, and remember this situation, me as a child soldier at 13 or any other, I have undergone it by those who set my mind to that deliberately they did it deliberately to make my mind not think. It was done over a long period of time. It's not a one day off. And it involved working on the mind like the spirituality or the political education, and done with pain. So you find that a child soldier is actually a moving biological person, but actually not a thinking person. And that is why I'm saying that possibly that is why my colleagues who could pass exams in the class but ended up not managing their own lives. So it is a protracted system right from the child soldiering period, in the incapacity not to have command over yourself, and even thereafter. So that is what I mean.
Mr. Wich noted that while he was sitting at the UN Committee for Human Rights under the Convention on the Rights of the Child, their goals were holding state parties responsible to ensure that A. Even in armed conflicts, children still received education. B. States were to ensure that no child was recruited into armed groups. C. Ensure evacuation of children from any scenes of conflict. D. States should ensure that the children involved in hostilities should not be held responsible for the acts they committed during their hostilities. He further said that a lot of time should be invested in rehabilitating child soldiers so that they can fully reintegrate back into society. When asked by the Defense Council whether a child soldier can be both a victim and perpetrator, Mr. Wich simply answered no.
My comment is that, one, it's unfortunate that children ever get involved in armed conflict. Two, is that children should never be used to fight adult wars. And three, is that the world should try not just to look at me, a witch, a child soldier, where I cannot be helped, I cannot be pulled out of a conflict situation, and the world should wait for me when I've been forced into growing there, and then it is the time that the world can learn on me to prosecute me. If it could help pick me out, it would have been much better to pick me when I'm already 18 and above. I wish they could pick. In my case, we were lucky we captured state power. But who knew if we had not, possibly I would have grown there. So if I could be saved before, when I'm a child, it is much better to the world to learn on me after passing that age of childhood. Finally, is that my contribution, I have tried to do it in my simple way. Through the committee, as I said, we interface so much with the Child Soldier International, for example. We even tried through the committee to draft commitments for warring parties, not to use children, to non-state actors. At home, I've tried through NGOs, through state institutions. So in my simple way, I think I've tried to help alleviate the situation children who ever get involved in armed conflict.
Another witness presented by the defense during this period was Mr. Richard Ebuju, witness D26P0140, who testified about his background as a Uganda People Army UPA soldier and his interactions with the LRA. Mr. Ebuju, a trained policeman, said that in 1986, He left his police job and went back home because the Uganda government came under the leadership of Yoweri Museveni and National Resistance Army. While back at home in Teso region, Mr. Ebuju joined UPA, an organization that was formed to protect his community from cattle wrestling by the Karamojong tribe. The witness noted that UPA organization changed to be a resistance organization against the Uganda government for not protecting the Teso cattle. Later on, Mr. Ebuju said that he was captured by Uganda soldiers and was eventually released. Following his release, he went to work in the private security sector. The witness testified about the Arrow Boys.
Mr. Witness, did you ever join the Arrow Boys?
Yes, I did.
When did you join the Arrow Boys?
They summoned me when I was in Kampala. I was summoned by Captain Mike Mukula. That there was already a war at home whereby Konya and his men had come and taken away so many children, young boys and young girls. So they needed my attention also to come and put together so that we could find a way of getting out the enemy from our land. So I came. I was put in a clandestine group where we could plan how to attack, the possible routes you could take, withdraw routes. Those were the places were of interest, such that we could put up ambushes. And that's how I came to join the Arrow Boys.
Mr. Witness, do you remember the year and approximate month you joined? You were called by Captain Mike.
It was in 2003, around March. That's when they called me.
Mr. Witness, as an Arrow Boy, what were your terms of engagement?
Well, as an Arrow Boy, we were there to defend in hand in hand with the government troops. We had to fight the invading force of which had invaded Teso and taken away so many children below the age of 15 downwards. So we had to try to rescue those children and fight the enemy as well.
Mr. Witness, you said the cardinal role why the Arrow Boys were recruited was for purposes of protection of civilians. Now, upon the invasion of LRA in Teso region, did the Arrow Boys protect civilians by moving around villages, or they were concentration camps?
Well, Arrow Boys were patrolling the villages, some were guarding the camps, and some had a duty even to attack the enemy positions where they had camped.
The witness answered questions about Dominic Ongwen.
Mr. Witness, did you hear of Dominic Ongwen coming to Teso alongside the Tabulays and Opio?
I was actually, if you hadn't asked it so directly, I would have done it. So it's so you can deduct from that it's okay.
Thank you.
For sure, with us, the commanders in Teso, we didn't hear of Dominic coming to Teso, either stepping in our soil. We have never heard of Dominic coming to our soil.
Mr. Witness, how long did the fight against LRA take in Teso?
It took almost 8 months. That war was over. The LRA withdrew back to wherever they came from.
Mr. Witness, do you remember the year and perhaps month when the LRA were completely flushed out of Teso?
LRA came to Teso in 2003, and within the course of the same year, before the end of that year, LRA was nowhere to be seen in Teso.
Mr. Witness, after the LRA had been flushed out of Teso, what then happened to the Arrow boys?
After that war, Arrow boys were given a smaller package and sent back home. Those ones who wished to join UPDF went to UPDF, but most of them went to work in private, they were absorbed in private security organizations, whereby I also so happened and joined the Ultimate Security in Kampala, but the rest went back home.
Two protected witnesses, D26P0130 and D26P0131, testified with protection measures of face distortion, the use of pseudonym, and parts of their testimonies were heard in private sessions. They both testified about how badly they were treated by the communities because of who they were associated with. Most of their testimonies were conducted in private sessions. The trial will resume on 25th March 2019 with the testimony of the 21st defense witness.